Hi, in today's video I'm going to show you how to do a reset on a NuTone IM or IMA4406 Master Station. I get a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails from people who believe that they have problems with their 4406 intercom systems because in the morning when they left for work everything was working fine, and when they get home it's in some state of disarray. Perhaps the radio doesn't play, or the intercom doesn't work, or the doorbell won't ring, the display might be blank. It can have a variety of problems, and of course if they look online and start searching out the symptoms of their problems, it seems as if it may be a dire situation, and they contact us not knowing what to do, looking for some help. And the very first step, if your system is not functioning correctly, is to do a reset. And for whatever reason, even though the reset button is readily accessible on the Master Station, NuTone chose not to include instructions in the owner's manual and any other place online that I've found, except perhaps for the service manual, which is slim at best, to explain how to do a reset and why. So let's talk about the why for a second. Modern systems like the 4406 and the 3303 have built into them a component called a microcontroller. And let me show you here. This is a board out of another model. It's not a 4406, but it's the same fundamental idea. And what we're looking at is the back side of an intercom control board. This is out of a NuTone IM4406. And on the back of the board, you'll see this rectangular component here and another one down here. These are both microcontrollers. One of them for a 5006, one of them controls the coordination in the selective call communication for the intercom, and the other one actually, believe it or not, controls the cassette deck. So it's a fairly advanced cassette deck, so it needs a microcontroller. So what are microcontrollers? Microcontrollers are basically very simple little microprocessors. They're not as powerful as the microprocessors that make your desktop or laptop PC work, but they are vital because inside them are instructions. In microcontroller, instructions that are loaded into them is commonly referred to as firmware, and firmware are the instructions that make the 4406 Master Station operate the way it does. You may think that when you walk up to your Master Station one day and you decide you want to listen to the ball game, you push the FM button and the red light comes on and the radio comes on and it goes to the last station you're listening to, and you can hear the ball game and you walk away happy. But when you push the FM button, it's not at all like when you walk into a room and flip on a light switch to turn the lamp on the table. The light switch on the wall is a mechanical connection, and when you flip it, it closes a connection inside the switch. It allows the electricity to flow through that connection, and the light bulb in the lamp lights up. That's not how the buttons on a 4406 operate. When you walk up to your Master Station and you press the FM button, what you're actually doing is launching a series of instructions that are loaded into the microcontroller as firmware that tells it what to do and in what order to do it in when someone pushes the FM button. So there's all of these little steps that have to happen. For instance, when you push the button, one of the steps is the red light has to come on. Another step is the amplifier in the Master Station has to switch on from its standby mode. The display has to change from the time to the proper FM radio station display and switch to the station that was last listened to. And I believe there are a few other steps in there also, but they're all a little series of steps. And since they all basically happen at the speed of light, when you push the button, it simply looks like the radio turns on. The problem that you can encounter on systems that have firmware in a microcontroller that controls the operations and the functions of the system is that microcontrollers can be a fussy thing sometimes. And one of the things that they don't particularly like is power outages, and that's whether the power goes out in your house for 20 minutes or a day or 2 days, or whether you have a brownout where your lighting, you notice, dims way down and then comes back up again, or perhaps the lights just flicker off for 10 or 15 seconds until your utility company switches over to another circuit and then the power comes back on. Power disruptions and microcontrollers can cause problems. When you have a power situation, sometimes when the power comes back on, the microcontroller will be confused. It won't turn on in its proper standby state. It'll be kind of jumbled, and it won't know how to follow the instructions, or it won't be able to read the instructions. So when you walk up to your set and ask it to do something, it won't know how. Or perhaps it comes up in a state where the display is blank and none of the features work at all. I had one recently. I talked to a fella. His clock worked and his doorbell worked, but the radio wouldn't play. It would switch on, but there was no sound. And that could be attributed to a more common failure mode. But again, the very first thing I had him to do while I was on the phone talking to him was to go over and do a reset. So what you're doing when you do a reset, and this board is actually a good example because you can see there's this little pigtail of wires, and right here is a little switch. This is actually the reset switch for the microcontroller on the board. This in a 5006 is mounted down on the bottom of the faceplate, and there's a hole in the bottom where you can access it, and when you push it, you reset the microcontroller to its default settings, and if it has a problem within it, it will often clear the problem and then it will work again. So let's look at the switch a minute because it's very similar to what you have in a 4406. This is a little what's called a micro switch or a tactile switch. Let me move in here so you can see it. So there's a tactile switch. It's a very small switch. It's about 1/4 of an inch square, and it has a little button in the middle of it. And when you push it, it doesn't move very much, but you can feel it go click. And that's all it takes. So when you push this and hold it, it resets the microcontroller here to its original factory default settings, and if there's a problem with the firmware inside the microcontroller, it will clear itself and hopefully your system will work again. So let's look and see how to do this on a 4406. Doing the reset is very easy and straightforward. You do not have to open up the Master Station to do it. The only thing you have to open up is the lower right hand door. So you open up the door and then you have a control panel here. So let me go ahead and zoom in on this so you can see it better, and that'll make it easier for you to do the reset. So here we have the panel behind the lower right hand door, and as you can see, the very first control on the panel is loudness, which can be on or off. And just since we're going through this, loudness when it's in the on position adds more bass into the music, and a lot of people like that. You have system volume, which adjusts the music level throughout the entire system. You have bass and treble, which you can adjust as you like. And you have buttons. You have time set and memory set. Time set is to program the clock and the built-in timer, and memory set is to program your 6 AM and 6 FM radio stations into memory. So you're thinking now, well, where's the reset button? I don't see a button that says reset. How come? What do I do? Well, just to the left of the loudness switch, right here is a little hole in the panel. So what you need is something small, like a small screwdriver, or often a toothpick works really well. Paper clips, not so good. They're kind of small, and if you miss the switch when you jab it in there, you might hit the circuit board, and I don't recommend that. So toothpick by default, small screwdriver if you have one, even better. So what do you do when you do the reset? You take your small tool, you insert it carefully into the little hole, you push it until you feel it go click. You count to 5, 3, 4, 5, and now you release it and it's been reset. So I'm going to zoom back out and show you what happened. And if you look carefully, you'll see here that when we started the video, the clock said 4 o'clock, and since we've done the reset, it now is flashing and it shows 1 o'clock, flashing clock. Remember the days of VCRs when everybody's VCR flashed 12 o'clock all the time? Even if you have a system with a backup battery, when you do a reset, you still have to reset the clock. The other thing that you lose when you do a reset are your pre-programmed AM and FM stations in the memory buttons. Those are cleared also because those station numbers are stored in the microcontroller. So now you have to reset the clock, which is easy enough to do. Use time set, change hours, once to then move to minutes. We'll make it 4:15. And we're not going to program the timer, so we're not worried about that. And now we're back to 4:15. I'm not going to show you how to reset the radio stations because I think at this point, if you had your system for long enough, you know how to do that. Although, I guess I will show you. So we'll turn the radio on. I don't have an antenna hooked up, so we're not going to get any kind of decent reception here. So I'm going to manually tune it to 92.1. You press memory set, and the numbers flash, and then you program it into whichever button you want. See, we took too long, so it went back to the clock, so we'll do it again, 92.1, memory set, program it into number 1. And you have to do all 6 AM and all 6 FM. So one more time, just to show you in the widescreen shot, small tool, insert it into the hole where the reset button is, push it for 5 seconds, release it, clock flashes 1 o'clock. On some models of 4406s, it may flash 12 o'clock. It seems kind of random as to which ones do which. It doesn't really make any difference. It's just the instructions as firmware in your microcontroller that tells it what the default time should be upon a reset. So that's how you do a reset on a 4406 Master Station. Resets are not something that you should have to do on a weekly basis unless you live in some place that has a lot of power outages. Resets are also not the cure-all for real hardware problems with 4406 Master Stations. These are rare and occasional problems that people may experience once every couple of years or something like that. If your system chronically has problems and reset solves it for a few hours or a day or so, you need to look into what else is going on, because it's not that. It's something else, and the reset may solve it for a short period of time, but not in the long run. So that's how you do a reset on an IM or an IMA4406 Master Station. I hope you found this video to be interesting and helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you leave comments down below, I will respond and answer them. Also, if you have ideas for videos, I'm always interested in that. Sometimes I have a lot of ideas and sometimes I don't. So if you have ideas, let me know. I will answer all comments and all questions that are sent to us. So I hope you enjoyed it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.